Hey there gang, today we're going to take this yard log, this yard chainsaw, and make some boards because I need to make some cabinets, and since I don't have any factory lumber up here because of the current administration seems to think that paying $12 for a 2x4 is acceptable, I do not. So we're going to be making boards today so we can get this cabinet built. Right now, I got to go pee, so you watch this. We'll be right back. Okay, what I have done is I have taken my Stihl MS391 big honkin' chainsaw and made a bar milling attachment right there to help me make boards. I'll get into how I built this maybe in another video. All you need to know is that this 1x6 sits on top of this board I have screwed down to my log. This is a piece of wood called BCI. It's basically used for trusses and joists, stuff like that. They're pretty stable, and it's all I've got to use as a guide, so that's what I'm going to use. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to set the saw on top of the BCI this way. The BCI is about 1 inch 3/4 thick. The leftover space from the bottom of the BCI is what's going to determine the width of our board, or the thickness of our board, I should say. And right now, I got it set to be about 1 1/4 inches because I need some fairly heavy stock. I'm going to rip probably 2 of these once I get my first cut made, and then I'm going to switch down to do like 1/2 inch stock. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get started right now, and I'll show you how that kind of works out right now. Okay, as you can see, I have the BCI secured with deck screws actually there and on the other end to the board, or to the log, I'm sorry. That's just going to act as our guide, and it's going to keep us on track and getting a straight cut. You can't do this freehand. You can't do it just by putting the milling attachment right on the log either. You pretty much have to use one of these, and there's a reason for that, which we'll get into right now because we're about ready to fire up and go. Okay, I'm going to have to yell over the chainsaw. I don't want to shut it off, but I do want to cool it down. I took off my first cut slab, put my BCI back down, secured it with deck screws in 2 places so that it doesn't wobble, it's nice and straight. I'm going to make my second cut, which is also actually going to be a board. A lot of times the second cut slab is not used in most like commercial milling operations, but it's getting used here because I don't want to cut any more than I have to. So the second cut, actually they're all kind of the same. I have to finish off all the edges on all of them anyway, so it's no big deal. And we're going to start this process all over again. We're just going to keep doing this. This next board is also going to be like 1 1/4 inches thick, and then we're going to switch over and do 1/2 inch boards. Okay, there we go. That was our first actual board. Although I will find a way to use those first cut slabs as well. So I'm more important to see this than see me. That goes without saying, right? Anyway, I noticed that when I pulled, got done with the board, there, that's better. Got done with the cut, I still had some overhang here. I know that's weird. Had some overhang here to hang the saw off of. After all, you've got a saw running, and you know they're fairly dangerous. So when you get to the end of the board, generally what I do, I don't remember if I did it this time, hit the chain brake, and that'll stop everything. Then you can just ease it off. Generally I do that. Sometimes I forget. Ease it off, take your deck screws out, and you've got your first board completed. Now what I did was I screwed the BCI back down. I'm gonna do one more like this. I won't show you, and then we'll switch over and do a 1/2-inch board. I don't know if you need to see that either, because it's the same thing. It's just a skinnier board. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take, I have one spacer, this spacer here, if you can see it. If I take everything out except the washers, that will give me about a 1/2-inch board. And nothing is exact because I just built this and I just used what I had laying around. I'll make stuff more exacting later. And just 2 nuts gives me the 1.25 inch. I take these out, I'm going to have a 1/2-inch board. I put this block on here to keep my hand from slipping off and going over. It's probably not gonna, I'd probably not cut myself, probably wouldn't cut myself, but you know, you might as well be extra careful. You know, I don't want to cut my hand off doing this, but it makes a good place to rest your palm and to push. Also, don't overheat your saw. I kind of work my saw back and forth. I don't know if you guys notice it. I'd push the tip down into the wood and then work it back and forth like this, as opposed to just trying to push like this. I don't want to overheat my saw and ruin it. And you also notice that I also manually, I don't know where I put it, got that this little jug of oil. This is not an efficient way of doing it, but every 2.5, 3 feet, I will stop, let the saw rest for a few minutes, and then oil the bar manually with this. Better safe than sorry. I don't want to burn up an expensive bar or ruin a chain, anything like that. Also, make sure that your chain is sharp. And like I say, just don't overwork it. When you get done cutting the board, don't shut your saw off. Let it cool down first. Let it cool down. I know that's kind of awkward. Let it cool down first. Be nice to your saw. You know, it's important. Anyway, that's it. I got this secured down. We're going to fire the saw back up, cut this last one, and then go and start making our 1/2-inch boards. Okay, there you have it. I am done cutting all the boards I'm going to make. Now what I have to do is I have to remove the edges and make them actually more like dimensional lumber. And that's going to be here in just a few seconds for you, but it's going to be tomorrow morning for me because I am done. Okay, I've got my first board down. We need to make a finished edge on this side. I'm using deck screws to screw down my BCI. Last time I did this, I laid this flat. This time I'm going to stand it up just to see if it works better. The reason being is part of my BCI would hang over the edge of the board, and I would have to shim it up and stuff. So I laid it on edge, and I'm going to put a few more screws in to make sure it's sturdy. And then I'm just going to run along here with my circular saw. I'm going to have to do that with all the boards, so it's going to be very time consuming, but we'll get this first one done and see how it works. Okay, all of our boards now have one straight side. Now I'm going to set up my table saw to use this straight side along the fence of the table saw to make this side straight. Now this is probably one of the worst boards I have, so it's going to be a pretty skinny board, but that's okay. It's also, I brought it over here because it was the smallest one to carry too. I didn't want to shut the generator off, too much of a pain in the butt because I got a lot of other stuff charging, so I left it on. I brought the chair and the camera over here, phone I should say. Anyway, I'm going to set up the table saw to take off this rough edge. Each board is just a little bit different now because we're going into the tree, and as you go into the tree, the boards get wider, right? Pretty simple. So each one has to be set up kind of individually. I'll show you the first one, and then it's just a matter of just adjusting a little bit and repeating. Okay, I'm going to have to yell. I got the blade set up so it's just a little bit above the material. I'll probably bring that down just a little bit. You don't want to cut any higher up from your material than you really have to. Mostly because one, it doesn't cut any better, and two, if something were to happen, you're not going to cut your hand off, you're just going to cut yourself a little bit. So it's kind of a safety thing as well. I'll bring it down just a little bit. Whoops, wrong way. Now this board, as you can see, this board is the worst one actually, so I'm going to do it first. I don't think I'm going to get much more than a, excuse me again, a 4-inch board off of this before I start getting into this rotten material, and this is due to the spruce bark beetles. So I'm going to adjust this for 4 inches, rip this off, and then the rest of this excess will just be firewood. Right behind me you can see 17 boards of various thicknesses, anywhere from about 1/2 inch on up to 2 inches. 17 boards took me 2.5 days, not the entire time, over the course of 2.5 days. It is pretty time consuming, but if that's the only way you got to make boards, just a few dollars worth of tools will build you a bar mill that will help you get the job done. Like I said, it is time consuming, but it's kind of rewarding too. I can't say it's really cheap to do it either. There's a lot of gasoline and oil expended in the process. But I guess if that's the only way you can do it, that's the way you do it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Keep on watching. I got more stuff coming up. I'm going to be building actually a milling station because I've just been doing this wherever I can find a spot, and that's not the way to do it. I'll be much more efficient to mill logs and notch logs and stuff if I actually have a workspace set aside for that, set up to where it's a dedicated area set up just for that. So look forward to that video. I'm going to be working on that one next, believe it or not, just because it was very grueling physically to mill and work all these logs like I did. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a nice comment in this world of divisiveness, and we will see you on the next one.